The idea of entering someone else's world pervades earlier parts of gaming history and design to the extent where its refinement still informs world design in games today. Stepping into a particular Mega Man stage designed to align with the essence of the boss character you'll face at the end shares many of its ideals with, say, an Arkham game, where sections of the worlds, the walls, the music and the tone will take their cues from the villain who resides there. It seems almost obvious, right? To create a strong sense of personality to non-playable characters, you can theme aspects of the world after them to extend their characteristics' reach beyond their physical bounds. How the player is prompted to feel by that part of the world associated with that character in turn can inform how they feel about the character. Like the hallway to them is a prelude. So it makes sense for Wild Hearts, a game with a text of tarot inspiration, lightly and elegantly veiling a core concerned with the process of self-reassessment inevitably following the end of a relationship, is deeply concerned in world design senses with how characters inform their surroundings. Because a real-life analog to this idea of world design informing you about a person would be the first time you see someone else's home or bedroom. How do they decorate their space? What does standing in their place? What does it tell you about them? Sometimes the rooms you spend your time together in, the music you listen to while there, becomes as core a part of those memories as anything else. And even further out, how individual people with their wants and needs, styles and idioms, beliefs and ways of living change how you see and interact with your world when you interact with them is important too. This is how relationships work. Different partners can change how you see the world around you, whether in a good way or a bad way. There are ups and downs to how any partner sees the world and changes yours. And Wild Hearts combines this with its world design in a really beautiful way. I think it's just incredible writing. They could be emotionally difficult to nail down, with a present duality or mood swings, a little manipulative, and you'll try and fail to navigate that unpredictability. They lived in the city. That's where you spent a lot of your time. Maybe their interests and hobbies informed how they see the world, were involved in fiction and substances. You got high, hung out, watched anime. It was fun while it lasted. Maybe they lived a long way away. Your friends weren't their friends. They were insular, emotionally unavailable. You were curious. Maybe they, despite a carefree, cute outward appearance of frivolity and mystery, were hiding a huge amount of anger, repression, and an inside which could seem monstrous. There was some go-between what you brought to their spaces with curvature, but the partner was actually more controlling than they initially seemed, becoming more and more rigid with more barriers and walls up. This was a dangerous place to be. This is extremely strong characterization the entire game through, because the world does it to reinforce the foe and then back again. It's cyclical. And moreover, it's important to contain this kind of expression within this kind of story. No romance plot ever worked without conflict, with black and white or good and bad characters. There are no hard lines here. People contain multitudes, and it's never more important to understand that than when you are romantically involved with someone. You have to understand the complexity of emotional battlefields to be able to tell this kind of story with any kind of honesty and resonance in turn. I see this game as someone reflecting on the time that they spent with old partners and how they grew through these trials, and given the distance from these memories, is able to assess the people they were with some kind of impartiality which gives the characters their depth. They're cool, but also a little twisted, and I don't mind fighting them. And then I really think it's quite beautiful how the fight in the game that feels the most raw, the one that feels really properly deadly and volatile, is the last one, the most recent, and the reason that this reflection was happening to begin with. The metaphor of all these characters wearing masks might seem a little on the nose, but each of them is a different shape. And our own introduction to our player character, who becomes the fool, is equally contained and effective, sitting in her room, her place, maskless, smiling, expressive, filled with personality. So I see through her eyes, and from so many changing angles too, spinning, first person, up high, up close. I assess everyone else's world through her own shifting gaze. But the strength and indelibility of those first moments are sustained, and even if I wasn't actively hearing it at all times, when Claire de Lune returned, it just made sense. Because the way this all plays out is very personal, I think. It's memory seen through the lens of an individual. The music feels very personal. The viewpoint of the fool is re-established when it needs to be. The unity between player and character is so delicately handled that it really feels like stepping into someone else's skull while they think back on intimate times they had with complicated people before they moved on. Needing to remove yourself from a partner's worldview to return to your own after a fallout, a breakup, whatever it might be, isn't a process that you can really guide others through. It's really tough. It's got to have anger in there. It's a flawed process. Everybody makes mistakes and everybody got hurt. But ultimately, the severance of that tie, while it will hurt, doesn't have to be something you're not at peace with. And I think Simigo, by making Sayonara Wild Hearts this way, or maybe I'm just interpreting it in this way, is able to give a really clear door into that idea. That as an individual, you will have your own way of looking back on this. It was perspective. These stories aren't easy. They aren't black and white. They hurt. And that's okay to talk about.